Did your narcissist manipulate you through sex and through a way to be able to get you to respond a certain way based on what was actually happening? Maybe you felt this deep emotional connection with a narcissist, with a toxic person through highly passionate, satisfying sexual relationship. And you're like, this is the best thing ever. Maybe you realize later that the intense sexual prowess was a tool to actually manipulate you and control you. So we're going to kind of talk about a piece of this, of just understanding some pieces of the sexualized aspect of a narcissist actually manipulating you and controlling you. Now, I know as I say this, half of you are going to be like, yeah, no, not my narcissist. Like, he wasn't good at sex at all. Totally get that, okay? Unfortunately, we're not talking to you today. We're talking to the ones that did get locked into this idea of like, but we have such an amazing connection. Like, we have the best thing ever. And it's not just because relationally wise, it's because sexually wise, they felt like they hit it off on a whole nother level. So I want to kind of dive into that. One of the aspects with it is with the narcissist first getting with you and having that deep sexual connection. Now you're like, this seems like the best thing ever. Well, that's because a narcissist is great at love bombing. Yes, it's a different type of love bombing, but still love bombing indeed. Of getting to the place where you're using sex as a powerful tool to create this bond, to create this connection with you to be able to do whatever they want to do. Now, a lot of times it feels like it's the best thing ever. A lot of times it feels like they know exactly what to do. Like they've been there before. They know exactly how to be able to make you the best version of you in that moment, right? Like there's a piece that you're just like, wow, like I found my soulmate. A lot of that is scripted out. A lot of that is the narcissist learning and understanding pieces of you to become the version that you're actually looking for. The problem is it starts to become an actual tool that the narcissist use to be able to manipulate you and to be able to connect to on this certain type of level of a bond that binds you to the toxic person. When you're having sex, it goes through this emotional, mental, physical, this whole different aspect that you're wrapped up with another person. And as a result, it starts to create these feelings. It starts to create these emotions. I was talking to somebody one time and they were like, yeah, like we just did friends with benefits and all of a sudden we had feelings. And I'm like, imagine that. That's what happens when you're intimate with somebody over a period of time. Like it continues to grow in this way. Narcissist is specifically doing it in the form of seduction, trying to make you get to the place where you feel desired, where you feel cherished, where you feel special. And so as a result, you always want that. Now, oftentimes it's a ploy and oftentimes it's a way to try to build this strong connection. Okay? Narcissists will use this at times to work on their sexual ideas of, hey, I'm going to create this illusion of this extraordinary connection, like the best thing ever, making you believe that you found the ideal partner. Like you might be at the place where you've been like we argue, we fight, but like our sex connection is just amazing. If that's all you have, you don't really have a relationship. You just have someone that's calling you up for a booty call, like trying to get with you for the sex. At the end of the day, you can't lock yourselves onto that one singular piece because there's a whole lot of other pieces that go into a relationship than just sex. The problem is the narcissist is typically going to leverage that to manipulate and to confuse you, thinking that this is what it is. This is what you need. This is where you're at. And so it's this confusion that happens in this aspect of, hey, let me give you this great sex so that we are bonded together, so that we are the soulmates. Okay, you're going to see this a lot of times at the very beginning of the relationship. This is where you see it the most prominent, where narcissists will be great with you, great in bed, like great connecting with you on multiple different levels. Okay, and they might give you just like love bombing, like affection, compliments, all these things, but then great sexual experiences. And you're like, wow, like this is amazing. This is the best thing ever. And what it does is it slowly focuses you like on the actual sexual satisfaction. Like it creates this emotional high and a sense of being deeply connected, when in reality, there's not really a depth there. A lot of times narcissists will leverage something they know about you or something they understand, like a sexual connection there, and leverage that while they're manipulating you on the other side. So like leverage, like let me focus on how great our sex connection is. Yeah, he's abusive every once in a while, but sex is great. Like it'll be trying to confuse you by giving you that emotional high when it's not actually there in all the rest of the relationship. And so you have to understand, like, this is just another manipulative tactic that a narcissist will use to get someone to do what they want them to do, to manipulate, to control all those different pieces. And so this brings it to a whole nother level as the narcissist continues to manipulate and control you, oftentimes using this as a form of leverage. Okay, so narcissists is going to use different aspects of your emotional vulnerability, of your insecurities, of different things like that to manipulate and control you. It's the same thing with sex. Like a lot of times narcissists will exploit your vulnerability, your emotional investment that comes up with those intimate moments, using them to assert power over you. Now, this could be a different power dynamic. It could be a power dynamic in the bed, or it could be a power dynamic holding back from you. It could be all these different types of power dynamics, but ultimately it's meant to get to the place of how do I actually control you? How do I actually make sure that I'm doing what I want to do, and oftentimes through withholding. This could be where the narcissist weaponizes sex by withholding it from you, okay? By like not keeping it, by not letting you actually have it. You're like, oh, I really want this. Nope, you're not going to have it. Like pulling it back. Okay, and it creates this emotional like, but, and then you keep running after it. This starts to be able to foster this idea of the addiction. Like the bond that we talk about when you're stuck in a toxic relationship often comes from that push and pull. They'll use it a lot of times to weaponize it against you, to make you feel like you're the bad person, to make you feel like you're the crazy person because you're always asking for sex or whatever they want to be able to put upon you so that you feel bad. But a lot of times that's what they're doing. Okay, projecting a different reality onto you than what they're actually currently experiencing. A lot of times narcissists will create this dynamic where even with sex, you start to become dependent on their validation and on their approval. Like this is where a narcissist knows that they've got you. Like when you have to come to them for validation, for approval, they know I'm in control. I'm in control of you and all different aspects of life. So narcissist does this. They focus on what do I need to do to be able to leverage myself to be in control. Sex is a great way for a narcissist to be able to do that. Like, let me put this where I'm holding back from what she wants. I'm not giving what is actually going on. And as a result, can actually control the other person. Okay, now think of it this way. Like a narcissist will use sex a lot of times either as reward or as a punishment. Like, I'm either going to give you or deny access based on your compliance with my demands. You do what I want, this is what I give you. You don't do what I want, no way. Okay? Like, this is a way that narcissists will try to continue to manipulate and control you through this aspect. Like, I'm going to reward you or I'm going to punish you. It just depends on how well you perform, what you actually do. If you actually show up in a way that I want you to show up. Okay? See, very like self-serving. There's also this aspect on a lot of narcissists where it becomes very coercive. Okay, where the narcissist starts to participate in marital rape, where he's actually attacking you, where he's actually saying, well, because you're my wife, you're supposed to do what I tell you to do. So as a result, you need to respond this way. This brings in a lot of like toxic Christianity. This brings in a lot of different religious organizations that don't actually care about the individual. All they care about is the conformity of the image, which typically comes down to the fact of, well, you're just supposed to be subservient to me. Works great for a narcissist because he's like, yep, that's exactly what I want. So a lot of times you'll see a narcissist that will be very coercive. And sexual coercion is something that's not talked about that much because nobody wants to hear about it. No one wants to be honest about it. Okay? Narcissist wants to get away with it, and the victim's too worried about what's going to happen when they actually come out and say something. Okay? But a lot of times the narcissist will push you to a level of where you get to feel uncomfortable, of where you start to feel disregarded of your boundaries, where you no longer have autonomy in your relationship. You'll start to see a lot of times in narcissism where they'll start to bring in this triangulation even on the sexual level. Okay? A lot of times referencing how they're going to cheat, or referencing they could have anyone they want, referencing how they want to have a threesome, like pushing you to your boundaries, pushing you to do things that you're not comfortable doing, still going back to a piece of that manipulation and control. Well, then we move into the other stage of how they actually go through the love bombing and all those pieces. We move into the other stage of the devaluation, the discard. And as this happens, a lot of times the seductive piece of the narcissist, the piece you found attractive in the sexual category, starts to just diminish or oftentimes like disappear entirely. Now, sometimes this is because they already found someone else. They're already cheating on you, they're already with someone else, and it's like, why do I even want this? I'm already moving on, but they haven't even told you anything about it. Typically because they're a coward and doesn't want to actually be honest. But that's a whole nother conversation. Okay? Like when you start to get into the devaluation, the discard phase, this is when the narcissist starts to focus on beating you down, like belittling you, making sure you feel little. As a result, there's not really a ton of like intense sexual connection. Sometimes there could be around like arguments or these like high octane moments. The problem is when you have a big argument and you have this sex that happens from a person who's actually not changing and developing, it starts to confuse you because you start to think, wait a second, we do have a good connection. when all it's doing is minimizing the stuff that just happened. Okay? When the narcissist starts to pull back of having this intense sexual connection that you had before, like a lot of times it will bring you to a place where you feel even more confused. Where you're like, what's wrong with me? Like what happened? Like why am I different? Why is he not paying attention to me? Why is he looking at porn instead of me? Like all these things will start to run through your head and you're like, why am I not good enough? Okay? So you're going to see a lot of times a narcissist that will lose this interest. All of a sudden they don't want to be sexually intimate anymore because they're engaging in infidelity. They're cheating on you. They're going through this aspect of like, hey, I'm going to do what I want to do and I need to devalue you. I need to undermine you by putting you down, making you feel bad when nothing's actually changed for you. But for them, they've got someone else on the back burner. They've got someone else that they're pursuing. A lot of times they're going to use sex as a tool to be able to degrade you, demean you, make you feel unworthy and desirable, be with you, then push you away. Okay, there's a lot of different pieces, but a lot of times narcissists will use sex as a manipulation tool, as a manipulation tactic. It comes down to a lot of narcissism being very transactional. I want what I want to get what I want, what do I need to do so I get what I want, multiple things like that. If you're at the place where you're just discovering about narcissism, you're like, hey, I want to be able to learn more. I'm not sure what's actually going on in my relationship. Is he a narcissist? Is he not a narcissist? What does it look like? Go to escapetoxicity.com today. escapetoxicity.com today. It's our 7-day challenge for $7. It helps you understand narcissistic abuse, the guilt, the shame of being with a narcissist, how to be able to process your reactive abuse. Like, are you the narcissist? All these different questions we're going to answer inside the 7-day challenge. If you want more of an accelerated aspect, you can go to Raw Motivations Coaching, rawmotivations.com for coaching, and we can talk to you there. Okay? Thank you all so much. Y'all have a blessed day.